So, if you have ever struggled to figure out exactly how you can stay in farming and not lose your mind, you are going to love this first episode of Food, Flowers, and Fun with our amazing guest, Betsy Busche. She is the owner of Spongetta's Garden, and this episode is sponsored by Penlight for Farmers, which is equipping farmers to recharge themselves so they can recharge their farms. If you're the woman who does it all, farm work, housework, bookwork, homework, getting up at the break of dawn, this is the podcast for you.
How do you multiply by fractions, Mom?
Get away from the cares of the day. Restock, rootstock, feedstock, seed stock. Chat with women around the world who raise food, flowers, and fun. With your host, Kay Castrataro. That's me. Betsy, welcome. How are you today?
I'm very good. How are you?
Oh, fabulous. I'm so excited. Why don't we just jump right in and tell us about Spongetta's Garden. Tell us how you got into farming. Tell us what you do, all of that stuff.
Okay. To start, I grew up with two parents who moved from Bergen County, New Jersey, up to the Northern Catskills because they wanted land. So I am the worst kind of local because I was born here, but my family is not from here. So I live a few hours north of there now. But I have always been into gardening. My father taught horticulture. My stepfather and mother had a dairy farm, so it's always been a part of our lives. And at some point in high school, I really wanted to be a florist. And then when I was in college, I was helping out a florist getting ready for weddings, and all it was conditioning flowers and unpacking them. And it was roses, carnations, leather leaf, and that was it. And I questioned it one day, and I was told that that's what sells. So at that point, I'm like, I don't think I want to be a florist. Um, so
I don't want to just work with 3 types of plants.
yeah,
Like, that's boring.
it was boring, and it was the 90s, so it was all white. Everything was so minimalist.
Yes.
Um,
Baby's breath. My sister does wedding
yes.
flowers, and she's like, I hate baby's breath.
Yeah, and
Oh,
untangling baby's breath. I did not want to spend the rest of my life untangling baby's breath. So, so fast forward to when I met my husband, who I met online, and I responded to his ad because the last line of it was must be tolerant of agriculture, and I needed to know what that meant. So, long story short, we hit it off, and
You married the guy.
yeah, 20 years this year. So,
Congratulations.
well, thank you. So he came with a family with land and just the belief that we should be doing something with the land.
I love that. He came with a family with land.
Yes. And, just the family belief that we should be using it. So my mother-in-law sells lamb and goes to farmers market. So I was playing around with market gardening and that kind of thing. About 10 years ago, my career up till then was working in community service for colleges and grants and grant writing and funding and all that kind of stuff. And about 10 years ago, my last grant ended, and I helped out on a friend's farm for the summer. And then I started to think I could do that. But backing up to our wedding, our friend Ann Donnelly, we did very low key flowers for our wedding. My brother pulled them together, and it was just Gerber daisies, and it was no big deal. It was just bouquets. And we just kept everything super simple. We got married
No
in a
baby's
field.
breath.
No baby's breath. Well, Anne felt bad we didn't have more flowers, so she made a giant urn from her garden of all of these crazy flowers. So there were sunflowers in there was globe thistle. Like, it was a mass of, fun wildness. And that made me realize that I could grow flowers. So then it's been 20 years. So it's been this journey of figuring it out. So 10 years ago, I did that. And then I decided I wanted to do it myself. And I did a really bad year at my in-laws farmers market of short zinnias and a few snapdragons, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I was trying to sell them for $5 and no one cared. So I then did just a deep dive into how do I do this. So I read, me being a reader, I read everything that I could. I
What were some
dove.
of your best resources? Just for those other people out there, what were some of your really key books or magazines or whichever source you got, online resources? I guess we have all those now.
So the best thing that I found was Frank and Pamela Arnosky for years wrote a flower column for Growing for Market, and those columns were put into books. So I did an archive Growing for Market subscription for a year and read everything I could, and then I discovered they were the books. There's two of them, and it was just them and the technical information that they were imparting to everybody. That's what got me going. um,
Amazing.
and then, of course, Florette influenced all of us, especially over this last decade. And then Lisa Ziegler from Gardener's Workshop in Virginia, and just her programs and all of her tools, and understanding the difference between hardy annuals and tender annuals, and now, biennials and perennials. The other great resource I had wasn't a book, but a retired art teacher in our neighborhood who has incredible perennial gardens. And as a fundraiser, every year we split perennials and have a flower sale in May.
Oh, wow.
And I'm not really part of the organization, except I'm part of the flower sale.
Yeah.
And what I have learned from her, of not knowing any of this to being able to teach other people in 8 years, is pretty amazing.
Wow. So let me
Um,
ask you a question. Do you have
yeah.
any quote unquote formal education in what you're doing?
I have a degree in art, with a concentration in photography.
Okay, I love that. And the reason I wanted to ask you that is because there is this sense sometimes, I know that I struggle with it, that if you don't have education, if you haven't been trained in a certain area, that you're just not competent to either make
Right,
business out of it, or that you're never really officially a business. Like maybe you're
right.
just a hobbyist who happens to make a lot of money or sell a lot of stuff, or all of that. And I really want to emphasize that whole lived experience and the knowledge that we get through our crazy lives that all look
Mhm.
different and take us to places that don't necessarily seem like we were prepared for. Although I would say that art and flower design are like amazingly connected, and even growing anything is
Yeah.
a form of an art.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And
So
I will say I did take one greenhouse course at a local ag and tech college.
uh-huh.
So that helped, but then I decided not to pursue that. I was thinking about doing that as a degree, but then I got a job. So but yeah, I agree with that, and it all kind of comes together, I think.
That's
Um, you know, and I didn't mean to get into education, but I already had that background, and then I realized people wanted to know what I knew, so,
mhm.
which is kind of neat. But yeah, I do a lot of reading, but I watch videos and self-taught, and also a lot of things we figure out is from observing. Um, One of the huge things, especially right now, is as you're thinking about putting plants into the ground or seeds into the ground, is understanding the temperatures, opposed to not just doing everything Memorial Day, which is what we do here in central New York. That's our frost date. That's when we put everything in the ground. But I also, by the way, I stalk the different Facebook groups of people asking questions, because that's how I get ideas for columns, because
Oh, great.
we live in a world where there's a lot of bad information right now.
Yeah.
And um
Right.
And it's good to know when it's out there and when maybe we need to counteract that a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as the temperatures, putting dahlias in the ground before it's 60 degrees is a foolish idea because they're not going to grow. They're going to rot. And there are all of these hardy and there are all these plants that will go down to 26 degrees, but nothing really grows under 40 degrees. So it's understanding what your plants want, what they'll tolerate. And yes, we want more flowers and we want them quicker, but what are we doing to stunting our plants or causing damage to them?
Yeah.
Um, by putting them in too early, just because we're all anxious to do it. So,
Right. Right.
so
Yeah.
it's the science behind it is what fascinates me.
So it's funny. I might shift our gears a little bit. We can come back to your story too, but it does make me think about one of the key purposes of this show, which is to talk about how farmers can sustain, you know, their whole personhood, and that idea of planting seeds or bulbs or tubers at the wrong time in the wrong
Mhm.
soil. It's the same thing with us. Like if we're not taking good care of
Yeah.
ourselves, it's just as if we were doing that. We're planting ourselves in the wrong job or in
Mhm.
the wrong market within that occupation, which you've experienced. You've done a shift in market, and I think that that's really interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Just as far as how.
How you got into wholesale
Okay,
as
yes,
opposed to your
absolutely.
retail.
So when I first started, I was obsessed with market bouquets, with the idea of a mixed bouquet. I remember talking to some at a conference, talking to two women who were doing weddings at that time. We all started at once, and they were all into the wedding and making the bride happy. And I said, "No way, that sounds stressful." And I was all about figuring out that market plan so that I had something from spring right through fall. And I ended up planting, 80 to 100 varieties through that time, trying everything, doing a little bit of everything here and there. And in a lot of ways it worked. I ended up with a great following at the farmers market that I was selling at. I had a bunch of CSAs and it was all kind of working. One of the reasons the CSA worked was I had a college student who would deliver for me. So all of those customers loved having the delivery, but then she graduated college and got a real job. So I lost her. And then I tried to do it. And that was like 4 hours out of my day that I didn't want to do. And, it just wasn't working. So I had to scale back. During COVID, I got sick and had a lung issue. So I had to slow down. And through all of that, realizing that one crop, if I could figure out one crop to sell wholesale. And that's what I'm realizing all of us should be doing
Mhm.
is instead of trying to do everything for everybody, being able to do a single crop. And talking to in my writing, I've been talking to some flower collectives, and that's what they're really doing is encouraging farms to pick one or two crops. That's what they're focusing on. That's what they're wholesaling. And then you're able to sell it through the collective. That's certainly working for me. I also just we don't talk about the ugly struggles as much as we should, I think. And honestly, one of the things that took me out was acid reflux. We
Mm,
bend over so much. To the point that I was throwing up in fields. And, it was just awful and painful. And, even with the medication, it wasn't enough because I was bending over for 4 hours a day.
right.
So it was my brilliant husband who said, well, why don't you grow something that's taller? And that's how we hit the sunflowers. Also, I'm growing them out on his family's property, and I've written about this. It's surrounded by black walnut trees, which puts out a toxin through the roots that deforms a lot of the plants we grow. And one of the things that we can grow alongside them are sunflowers. So that is my solution for using the land, but also for taking better care of my body.
Yeah, so
So,
I love this whole synergy of the decision making. I hate the fact that you were, struggling so much
Yeah.
physically that you were throwing up in the field. Like, and how many of us do that kind of thing on
Yeah.
the farm? Like, how many of us sit there and are like, it doesn't matter if my leg is falling off. I have to go out and work, and I have to
Yeah.
do it, and I have to do it the way I've always done it. Like, I
Right.
think what's beautiful about your story is that you really did take a step back and say, okay, what do I need? What do I need physically? What do I need emotionally? What do I need financially? And then, and that your husband had that, genius idea of grow
Yeah.
something taller. Like, we wouldn't have all necessarily thought of that. And
Mm-mm.
yet it worked out perfectly. And it ended up being a really good use for a piece of land that would be really hard to grow things in
Yeah.
otherwise. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I
Mm.
love this whole way that you really did start from you and build out so that the business was supporting you and not that you were continuing to kill yourself to support a business that you thought
Yep.
you should have.
Right. Very much so. And I'm becoming more and more self reliant, because I was depending on my husband to do all of the rototilling and lawn, prep and this and that. So we're now growing the sunflowers in 120-foot rows, 6 across, so we get about 1,000 in there. And we just were rotating through 7 rows, and purchased a tractor that I will actually be able to hook a rototiller to and do myself, and not wait for somebody to get me set up, so that I can plant when I want to plant, and that kind of thing. um you know I was also struggling to find help to do the things I needed them to do. And I
Right.
really would have liked them to do weeding, but high schoolers do not like to weed. So
Nobody likes to weed.
nobody does. And it's another bending over thing for me that was difficult.
Yeah.
Um, but what they don't mind doing is doing seed trays. So I grow all of my sunflower. I do both direct seeding because some varieties prefer that, but I'm realizing the like cream ones and some of the others um, grow better from transplants. So I am hiring somebody this summer, and her job is just to come over to my house, go into the garage, and seed 10 128 trays a week, and to wash all my buckets, fill them, and have them ready for the week. And
Nice.
to be able to have somebody who can at least take care of that part of it, I can do the rest. So, um,
Amazing.
but it's taken me a few years to find somebody who would.
Mhm.
Amazing how many high school students don't want to get dirty.
Really?
Yeah, that was when I asked one guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't get dirty." I'm like, "Okay, you're gonna go far." So, he's like on the debate team. He's doing fine. He doesn't have to get dirty.
Well,
So,
there's a job for every single one of us. And
yes.
again, we've got to go with what starts here. So if you don't like to get dirty, farming is probably not your best option.
No,
You know?
but his father has offered to help, so we're good.
Oh, there
So,
you go. Can't get the son, get the dad.
yeah, exactly.
So I'm
Good
wondering,
neighbors.
like, labor is definitely one of those things that farmers struggle with all over the
Yes.
place. So tell me how you did find your people.
Um, they are neighbors, but also I work closely with actually everybody who helped me as a neighbor. All the different high school students and adults. But I also work closely with our ag program. We are in a rural school district, and I go into the classroom a few times a year and do flower design and some other projects with them. And most of them have come through the FFA program. So,
Okay.
yeah, we did a floriculture team for a year with a group of students and had a blast. And that's where one of my helpers is coming from, that because we built a relationship. And and it's just asking my neighbor's kids, "Hey, do you want to try this?" And some of them are good, and some we redirect other directions. So,
This is not the career path for you, dear. And again, that's okay. Like I think sometimes
Right.
as any industry, like
Yeah.
whatever it is that you're into, but I see it in the farming community quite a bit that, if people aren't cut out for farming, it's almost like it's a failure on their part that they're not
Absolutely.
cut out for farming. And I think it's actually really important that we kind of try to shift that mindset and say that we really are all created for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
And if we were all farmers, then where would the tech people be who allow
Right.
us to have this conversation right now? Because, 10 or 15 years ago, you and I couldn't even have a
Right.
Zoom call. Like
Right.
I mean, it seems ridiculous now because we almost lament the presence of Zoom calls.
Right.
But how amazing, because I would have been limited to the people that I could drive to or to have
Right.
money to fly over there, which I mean, who's going to fly for a 1 hour conversation? Like that's a very expensive use of your time. But now we can do
Yeah.
stuff. So we need everybody with their I
Yeah.
like to get dirty, I don't like to get dirty. I like technology, I like to hoe weeds, like all of that stuff.
Yeah.
We need them all.
And also realizing like I was trying to scale up before I got sick, and I realized like I'm not that business person, and I don't want to run that as a business. I want this to be scaled to a level that I can do mostly by myself with help. And we all need to make that decision. And, I'm going to jump ahead to the advice part of this. And that is not everything we do needs to be monetized. Not every hobby. And, I work with a bunch of garden clubs, and they're all older women, 60 and up for the most part. And what I'm realizing is that was that generational thing, being a Gen Xer and going into the millennials, they're not joining garden clubs, they're forming flower farms,
Yeah.
and it's just a whole different way of looking at the world. They're not doing competitions with crazy rules of doing their flower arrangements, they're doing weddings, and it's been a huge shift. And it's interesting because I don't think everybody's caught up with that shift as far as education support, from our different agencies and different markets and stuff like that. When I first started at the farmers market in Utica, I was directly across from a couple who did vegetables, but she did flowers, and she was picking them that morning, not hydrating them, not letting them rest, fully opened, and she was trying to sell them for $4.
Mm.
And that was undercutting me terribly because mine were not as open. Um, Much more expensive, bigger, fuller, but it took me 2 years, and then when she finally dropped out of the market um during COVID, I finally filled that, and I had my following. People will pay for what they value, but you have to present it in a way that they're going to value it.
Well, that's it.
Um
They have to know what the value is
yes.
because if you're not a flower grower, which I am not. I have learned, I mean, I do in my gardens, but not professionally. And my sister, on the other hand, being a wedding florist, she knows so much about both growing and
Uh-huh.
prepping and making sure
Yeah.
that those flowers can last because
Yeah.
you've got an August wedding and it's 100 degrees out there. Those flowers are not going to make it if they are not very, very carefully prepped. And
Right.
so that whole process, if you're just walking in and you're buying your bouquets at the grocery store or at some roadside stand, and you have no clue what you're doing, you don't know everything that goes into that.
Right.
And so I think it's really important that farmers take that education piece as a
Mhm.
part of their business plan. Like every customer that they have, that's an opportunity to train them. It's an
Yeah.
opportunity to educate them so that they can value what it is that you're providing.
Yeah. And I have a reputation for long-lasting flowers, and I worked hard to do that. Like, once they're cut, they're out of the sun, and, things like that, has worked for me, and I've had a following because of that. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, and I also love the fact that you are working with the
Mhm.
younger generation, because I do think that that's super, super important, especially as our culture gets less and less agrarian.
Right.
It's really hard for farmers to continue supporting themselves in a healthy way and supporting their businesses. And so building up that interest behind us, it's a different, again, you said it's kind of a different mindset, because before you just figured that your kids were going to take over your farm. Oh, hello, sweet dog.
There you go. This is Charlie.
Hello, Charlie. He's adorable. I love him.
He has been walked, he has had treats, he is supposed to be on his bed, but he's right
He
here
loves
because we're
you. No, he
talking.
loves you. That's totally okay. Are you kidding? This is what we're all about. We're about real life here. Um, but I think that getting involved with the younger
Yeah.
generation, even in like elementary and middle and high school, it's really important because they're not, first of all, exposed to agriculture. So they don't even know whether they like it or not, because they don't even know what it is. And
Right.
then our kids coming up behind us know farming, but they also see lots of other options, because
Yeah.
now the world really is their oyster. And so
Mhm.
they're like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't like getting dirty and I don't
Yeah.
have to, so I'm not gonna. so, so
But
looking at how to
yeah.
both build up your own farm um, community, your own support
Mhm.
system, but also to help keep the generations that are coming
Right.
involved in the industry. So it doesn't
Absolutely.
all become big ag, because we don't
Yeah.
want that's not healthy for all of us.
Right. And, one of my great helpers who worked with me for 4 years through high school, has no interest in ag at all, but she's going to take this experience into whatever she does next. And it's going to be a part of her. And I think that's what's important is, you know, understanding that you just because you like to do something, it doesn't have to be your occupation for the rest of your life. It's not your career.
Right.
um, which is kind of what I learned the hard way, I think, younger. But then I had all these skills that turned around, and when I decided to do flowers, it worked out well.
Well,
So,
that is what I'm finding. I think sometimes our passions feel like they got derailed, but
yeah,
if we give ourselves an opportunity to really like listen to our hearts, then we can actually take all of these skills that, again, we said this earlier,
yeah,
that they don't seem relevant. And then you realize that you actually couldn't be doing what you're doing the way you're doing it without all of those other skills.
right, yeah,
So I mean, there's that old tapestry image where people are like, you look at your life on the back side of the tapestry and it just looks like a whole bunch of random
right,
screens. And it isn't until you flip it over that you see, oh my goodness, there's actually a design and a plan.
yeah, absolutely. And, I'm not the best grower. I'm an adequate grower, but I am growing these flowers because I love to design.
Uh-huh.
So, it is a means to the end. It's something I learned because I wanted access to these flowers that Anne all those years ago introduced me to, that I realized I could grow myself in my own yard. And, that's sort of it. And I'm going to tell the rest of the Anne story,
Yes,
over over the years. I would visit her gardens, we would talk. She, in her retirement, was a master gardener and did all this wonderful stuff. And then she passed away 2 years ago. So her husband and her son are living at the house now, taking care of these massive gardens that are all over the property, and they're at the point where they don't want to fuss with it anymore. So, along with another friend of hers, we're going in and basically we're taking her perennials
oh
and
wow.
digging them out this spring. So, we're going to do a memorial garden with a land group for it, and then we're going to take the rest of the flowers. So I have been going in and digging her stuff up, which I am so grateful for because she has some incredible plants, and I get to continue doing that, and the family knows they have no interest in them, but her memory continues through her plants.
I love that. Like,
So,
I love that you have that relationship with them. Because so
yeah.
many people would just like mow them down and,
Yeah.
or, round up them and be done
Yeah.
with it. And so the fact that you have that relationship and that it all does get to keep going on somewhere
Yeah.
else, I think that's amazing. That is such
Yeah.
a beautiful community that you have.
Yeah. So it's wonderful. So yeah, she has the best collection of hellebores. If you all know what those are. Yeah, they're the Lenten roses is the other name for them, but they are like the one of the first flowers that come out right along the daffodils, and they grow under trees, and they're take 3 or 4 years to establish, but once you have them, they are
Yeah.
amazing and they're gorgeous and they are cuttable. So yeah,
Well, I've
I'm
never cut
excited.
mine. So that's the thing. Like mine are all pretty short. So I have,
Yeah,
which is fine for me because I
yeah.
don't, again, I'm not a floral designer. My sister's like, you don't have to be a designer. Flowers are just beautiful. And I'm like, yeah. And I have this amazing gift of being able to take beautiful flowers and put them together and be like, wow, that doesn't look good at all. So I'm
I
much
get
better
that.
growing them in the landscape because I do put them in the right
Yeah,
spot in the landscape. And then I go and I've got flowers everywhere and I'm very happy. And I'm like, just leave them out there. I don't want to cut them. Just leave them.
right. Which is back to you don't have to monetize everything. You don't have to bring everything inside either.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. I just need a drink.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
So
I'm interested in how you are still balancing that desire to do all of the design when you're focusing pretty much on the sunflowers. Now you're getting all these new flowers coming in, of course, from Anne. So that might be shifting things a little bit, but your focus is still sunflowers. Am I correct?
my focus is sunflowers, but I also do some design work and I teach some design classes.
Okay.
So that kind of keeps it going. One of the things that I did well accidentally, um, actually, I had taken a course through a local entrepreneurial center, and we were really looking at customers, and I was questioning how do I reach men, which was right around Valentine's Day that year. So I went down and paired up with my local auto parts store. Um,
It's
so it's
genius.
a father-son team whose wives love flowers, and I started selling them out of the auto parts store. And what I quickly realized is men don't care about flowers in season. They want flowers when they need them. So I started the husband club, which is basically they give me their important dates. So we have Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, anniversary, and birthdays. And often it's not just their wives, it's also their mothers or sisters. And I have this list. So 2 weeks before, I have a calendar. 2 weeks before that event, I reach out to them and ask, do you want flowers? And so I keep going that way, and I have probably 8 of them that are active. So there is one of my design things, so I still do that. I also love dried flowers, and I'm adding back in 2 rows of dried flowers so that I can keep going through the winter. Um, and then most of the perennials are really early season for here, June into July. So that gives me flowers before the sunflowers start here. So I don't
Okay.
usually have like a lot of sunflowers until mid-July.
Okay.
So that's, it kind of gives me seasons to keep going,
Yeah.
which I love. So, and then one of the things that it took me a while to figure out is florists don't really want or need sunflowers, not the way I thought they would. So I do have several florists and designers that will order weekly, but they only want 40 or so. Where I thought they were going to get 100, just kind of different. Most of what I'm selling is either bulk to other farms so that they can put sunflowers into their bouquets,
Uh-huh.
or I'm making bunches and selling them by the bucket to farm stands and stores. So it's a little bit different than I thought it would be, but as my husband kept calling last year our year of learning,
Yeah.
like even though we did this for all these years, we had different issues, and we had some awful deer problems last year. So what we're doing right now is figuring out how to fence in that whole area
Yeah.
as economically as we can, to keep those guys out. They weren't bothering it, but when I was direct seeding, I was putting down row cover so the birds wouldn't get the seed. And I left the row cover on for 3 weeks. And when I pulled it off, the plants were so tender, the deer walked around everything else and just mowed it down.
Yeah.
And my nephew's girlfriend was helping, and my husband was right there, and we're just staring at it.
It's
And
heartbreaking.
yeah, and Cass is like, "Can we fix this?" And I'm like, So that's why every week I do transplants and direct seeding, is
Yeah.
so that no matter what happens, we still have them. But I lost that whole row that was really for all the like mid to late September festivals.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge hit. So I want to expand the stores that I sell to, but I can't do it until I know I have this problem fixed.
Right.
So we're trying to figure out, okay, exactly how can we do this, and how can we do it not for $4,000? Let's do it for 500,
Yeah.
So my husband's being great. He's doing all the research on the posts and that kind of thing. But every year we get better and more efficient, and it's easier to do. And I'm learning what varieties will sell, and I'm also learning how to grow which varieties of sunflowers, because it's not all throw them in the ground and let it go. So,
That's what I think is so challenging with so much of agriculture is that unless you're like honestly cropping, which I mean, not many of us really monocrop anymore,
right,
in its truest sense, where you're growing one variety of one
right,
type of thing. We tend to have some diversification, and it was actually a really big push. Like I know that in our area, because I'm in Rhode Island, so our part of New England is very urbanized, and
hmm,
so a lot of the agricultural infrastructure that exists, even like out in New York, where you've got just farms everywhere, and the Midwest, that no longer exists here. So
right,
trying to work without that infrastructure is challenging. And so our farmers were all pushed to diversify, diversify, diversify,
yep,
which sounds good from like an economic risk perspective because you've got more crops. If you lose one crop and that gets eaten by deer, you have another crop coming along
right,
that's going to take the place. Like that's the rationale behind it. But then what happens is you really do have all of these completely different crops that you have to learn how to manage. And you're
right,
saying even within sunflowers, you have those differences. So when you're growing 8 different types of vegetables and fruits and all of that
yeah,
stuff and doing agritourism and all of that insanity, then it does get to be too much. And I think that the idea of diversification sounded really good, but I think a lot of our farmers are really struggling because of it. I think it has put
right.
an awful lot of pressure on them that is unsustainable in the long term. Like it's just too much.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, and that mixed bouquet idea is too much. And what I would love to see happen, is more farmers work together to do this and that, and then have a bouquet making collective.
Yeah, talk a
Um,
little bit about that collective because you're a part of a collective, right?
I am actually not, I'm a little too far out. They started one in Syracuse, and I'm about an hour too far. And I grow on my in-laws' property, which is an hour the other direction.
Goodness.
So yeah, I drive an hour to get to my land, but I also have land here. I live in a beautiful Victorian in a village on a corner with absolutely no land. And I think we're on 2/10 of an acre. So I have a bank and I took over my front yard and that's where all my perennials are. Um, the advantage is the garage was built by an upholsterer. So we have a 2-car garage and then a 600 square foot studio space.
Oh,
So I
wow.
have my cooler in there and that's where I do all of my work. And then it has a basement, which is just ridiculous, and its own furnace. You don't want 2 furnaces, by the way. If that's ever an option, don't do it. It gets expensive. Um, but so I have this wonderful property, but I didn't have any land to grow on. And somebody I actually just met one of my neighbors I met in a meeting 8 years ago, and he said, "Well, come up and grow on our land." Well, I kind of blew him off the first time he said it. And then the second time I went, "Oh, okay, I'll go up and meet them." And they have become family. And so I have property, that I can do whatever I need to do. Again, I have to fence it in, so I'm limited
Mhm.
by that because it's Deer Alley and they will take out everything they can.
Mhm.
So, it's things that we're learning. So I have property here and then property there, and, I make it work. So
Okay, so
what?
yeah, so that's a lot of work. How did you decide to manage that? Like how do you keep yourself sane when you have to travel back and forth between those different properties? Because an hour drive is a long time.
Yeah. And an
Because it's
hour,
actually 2 hours, because it's
yeah.
an hour one way. So you automatically lose 2 hours of your day anytime that you're going out there. So tell me what strategies you use to make that less of a burden and more of like something you don't mind doing. Or is it still a burden and you mind doing it?
Yes, and yes, and yes. So so when I was doing all of the bouquet stuff, I had another friend who let me use their field too. So I had a spring garden, a summer garden, and a fall garden. So when I was doing that, that helped so that I wasn't driving as much. And he's back. Sorry. So now I have it worked out that I go out 2 days a week
Okay.
to do whatever I need to do as far as planting and harvesting. My husband spends his job is out there, but also he spends a lot of time on the farm. So he scouts for me, he will harvest for me. He is such a good sport about keeping it going. The hardest thing is when I only have like 30 sunflowers blooming that I can take, and driving 2 hours to just get 30 sunflowers is painful. So, I depend on my husband and my sister-in-law and my nephew's girlfriend. So having people who will just jump in and do those little chores out there when I can't just drive out there for nothing.
Yeah.
So one of the things as far as weeding that I figured out, we bought a Jang seeder, which I highly recommend people investing in if you're doing direct seeding. We bought the 3 across one and it's a dream. I love it. And so I will seed, put down the row cover, and then when I pull it up, I will cultivate 3 times and then I'm done. I don't bother with the weeds anymore. And then we get what we get and we walk around them. There are thistles in that area and we're never going to beat them, so we just have to deal with it.
Okay.
So I think it's understanding the practices, realizing some things we just have to let go. And
Mhm.
I am never going to have that pretty sunflower field that somebody's going to come and take pictures at for 2 reasons. That weed control issue, although we do mow in between the strips, which makes a huge difference.
Mhm.
And then I also harvest before they bloom. I harvest them as they're beginning to emerge. So everyone's like, "Oh, it must be so beautiful." So actually, Google Earth, you look down on that property and you can see the strips. And you can
You
see the
never
black.
see the yellow flowers.
You don't see the yellow flowers. You see the black plastic that was killing off grass so we could plant into it. And then you see the white row cover, but there is no yellow.
Yep.
So,
Well, and that's again like such an interesting thing because my parents are also farmers and they do grow sunflowers as well. And they grow for the retail market, for the pick your own
okay.
retail
Yep.
market. So like they don't even want to go out and be picking it themselves. They have other farm
Yeah.
uh, uh, you know, neighbors and stuff that come in and do their picking. They just love to be out there in the flowers and they are gorgeous. Like when they're in bloom, they are
Yeah.
absolutely gorgeous. And so it is a little strange to think about putting on all that work and then not getting to see the beauty in the field, but you're growing them so that they're beautiful somewhere else. So like there's that whole again that
Yep.
process and what it is that you're trying to accomplish with your business.
And all of my pictures are sunflowers in buckets
Yep.
because that's where they look good.
Which are
So,
beautiful.
yeah,
Because I
exactly.
mean, it's
So,
amazing.
yeah.
And they are incredibly resilient. Like
Yes.
the first year that my parents grew sunflowers, I took my kids out to go and pick some. And my daughter was maybe 3. She was young. And so she picks up a sunflower that's laying on the ground because somebody had cut it and didn't want it and they left it. And I'm like, sweetie, you don't want that one. You want the one that
Right.
was cut. And she's like, no, I want this one. Okay, fine. So then, of course, it's summer because that's when sunflowers are in bloom. And we ended up going to somebody's house. So the sunflowers got left in the car, which, as we all know, this is not the way to treat a cut flower. You do not do that to a cut flower. Well, I did. So by the time we got home, all of these poor sunflowers looked like death. I mean, they were just like,
Yeah.
so I cut the ends off and I stuck them in water and I was like, boy, you are going to look awful in the morning. And I woke up and they were gorgeous. And I was like,
Yeah.
how in the world did that happen? Like no other cut flower is
Yeah.
going to go through that kind of abuse and then last too. Like they
Yeah.
lasted for days and days. I
Yeah.
was like, there is something really weird about sunflowers.
Hey, they have one job, and that is to produce seed, and they take it very, very seriously.
They
So,
do.
yeah.
Oh my
So,
goodness. So tell me what is like the biggest challenge that you think you have had to face in either creating the farm life that you love or making it efficient or dealing with conflict? Which of those 3 things do you have a big challenge? Because we're coming close to the end. I want to hear a challenge and maybe how you overcame that or how you haven't yet overcome it.
my challenge is communication and dealing with people. I
Mm.
think is the toughest one. I could do all of this myself, but building the relationships that work to be able to sell the flowers with the farm stands and such and so forth. I had a crazy situation last year where I tried to do a 2 bucket minimum. So that would be 10 a week or twice a week. And I was delivering them and they weren't selling as fast.
Mm.
So I show up at the farm stand and there had been a note in the cash box that said no more Spongetta. And it's kind of like, you could have called me.
Yeah.
And it's we could have worked this out, but instead it just ended up being a disappointment and frustration that I
Mm.
had been driving all of this distance to try to accommodate them, and I thought I was doing it in a way that made sense. So then it just got to the point where I wouldn't supply to them unless I was going somewhere else in that area because it was the wrong direction. It was 20 minutes away. So I think the hardest thing for me is just balancing what everybody wants from me. And doing it in a way that makes sense. A good friend of ours who is a vegetable farmer says that 1 year is not a trend, but it's also true that one customer is not a trend, one, variety is not a trend. Something works and we have a tendency to, oh, I just had a cool success, and to latch on to, let's go that direction, where I'm really just going off on a tangent. So it's figuring out what is best for everything so
Mm.
that I'm doing things efficiently. And I was volunteering a lot of in the last 2 years, trying to get things together, um, you know, organizing a monthly let's all meet at a farm event for flower farmers and stuff like that. And this year, my husband and I had a pretty serious talk, and he said, you need to volunteer less and you need to make more money. So I took that seriously, and I said, okay, no more volunteering. And people have stepped up. So when they're asking me to come in and do talks, they're paying me to do it, not
Ah,
all volunteer. And people, I'm not asking a lot, but they're willing to do that. And that's what makes sense for me, is where I need to do this to make money and be self-sufficient and all of that. So,
yeah. And I'm
um,
also hearing behind that, like that there's a need to value the value that you bring to people. Like you
yeah.
need to really own the fact that the services that you're providing, see, I've got it coming
Yep.
too.
I love it.
So it's important to recognize that what you're doing has value and it's worth being reimbursed for the time
Right.
and effort that you're doing. Like it's not that you're trying to take advantage of somebody, it's that you're actually providing them with something very, very valuable,
Yeah.
and you deserve to have some kind of payment in return for that. And
Yep.
I think that's also really hard for us. I think women who are working out of their passion are especially prone to this. We are prone to, number one, say, well, I would do this for nothing. And so then we do it
Right.
for nothing. And just because we would do it for nothing doesn't mean we should or have to do it for nothing.
Exactly.
Especially if it's your business,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be doing it for nothing. You should be getting something out of it in return. Um, yeah, so I'm glad that he kind of put that bug in your ear and said,
Yeah.
"Oh, let's do this differently because yeah, you deserve to be
Yeah.
getting paid for it." And we all do have to make a living. I mean, the
Yeah.
fact is there's a mortgage that has to be paid. There's electric that has to be paid. You've got two burners, boilers that need to be
Yeah.
fed
Exactly.
and maintained.
Yeah. And Dave Dowling, who is just a rock star in the cut flower world, and he's going into retirement now. He was a grower, and then he worked with Ball Seed. One of his things was, we were supposed to be making enough money so that we can have a mortgage and we can pay our mortgage and we can put children through college. We are allowed to make that much money. And, you know, just like any other business. And I think that's really important, like being able to remodel our kitchens and,
Yeah.
live a good life that women, you I feel like in my generation, you hear the concept of pin money. Well, no, I'm not doing this for pin money. I'm doing this so I can get a better car.
Yes.
That's,
Well, and I've struggled with this a lot as, a startup business person
yeah,
myself and a consultant doing work that I love that I would do for nothing and wish I could do for nothing.
right,
And that feeling almost of guilt if you're getting more than what you
right,
need to just take care of the car and like to do the basics where there is, and I think agriculture is big in this. There is a sense of guilt if you're not suffering. Like
right,
if you're not suffering, you can't possibly be farming. And part of my mission is really to change that mindset and to say,
right.
no, we shouldn't be starving the people who are feeding our
Right.
bodies and souls. Like they really should have enough money to put aside for retirement. They should not have
Mhm.
to sell the farm in
Right.
order to have a good retirement. Like I've got a great uncle who was a dairy farmer and was dirt poor in debt the whole time that he was dairy farming until he sold the farm. Now,
Yeah.
now he's rich. Congratulations. Yay, he's rich. But now he doesn't have the farm.
Right.
And it's a lifestyle that kept him in poverty his whole life until he got out of the business. So it really is time that we start rethinking agriculture and how we do it. And I think some of what you're sharing is just genius. Like the whole idea of, finding the markets where the markets are, like
Mhm.
selling bouquets at the automotive place. Like I just, that blows my mind. And saying, yes, men are not good at gift giving. Like it's notoriously bad, and that's okay. Like they've got other things that they care about. They're not gift givers.
Yeah.
Hey, so you say, all right, I'm not going to try to change you into a better gift giver. I'm going to give you something that makes you a better gift giver because they don't want their wives and moms to feel left out. They
Right.
just literally forget about it. I'm not a man, but I do the same thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
what day is that birthday? What day was the anniversary? Like it's not top of mind for me. So that's why I've got alarms on everything. That's why
Yeah.
that's why I double booked for today's call because
All good. And
because even though I had them in there, they're double booked. So, you know, you got to work with where people are at and not do like a blame game, but say, "Hey, how can I help you and help myself at the same time?" Because you're not hurting them by charging them for the service that you provide. And I hope you're charging them well for the service that you provide because it's a year-round thing. You have to keep the system. You have
Mhm.
to, you're reaching out to them. And so that's legitimate. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody's getting what they need out of that relationship.
And along that lines of, we all wait till the last minute, which is why grocery store bouquets are so convenient because we're not ordering them ahead. So if we're getting our flowers into places where it's convenient for people to purchase them, so I was selling off my porch last year, just random extra sunflowers, and my neighbors were loving it.
Yep.
um you know as we make it easier that there's like the auto parts store where they can just go in and grab them, I think liquor stores would be a great place to sell flowers. um I haven't pursued that, but I think it would be actually, you're in there buying a $50 bottle of bourbon, let's take a $12 bouquet.
Vineyards,
So
like
yeah.
any of those tasting vineyards, like
Oh
if
yeah.
you're going for a nice tasting with the new girl and
Yeah.
oh, I could get flowers there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are great ideas. Oh my goodness, I could talk to you forever. I have
Which
had
I
you
have
on.
loved. Yes.
I could have you on forever. So, yeah, I guess you already gave us our one thing that you want farmers to know. But is there any last message you have for our watchers and listeners?
I think it's just try everything and figure out what you want to do. It doesn't There's so many other people. There's at least 1,000 people in upstate New York growing flowers to try to sell them right now, we think. We don't even know that number. But cooperation over competition, working together, learning together, people in my mind are more important than, like policies and doctrine. That if we can figure out a way to do more together, we're going to be more self-sufficient and we're going to meet those goals.
Oh,
So,
I could not agree more. And I'm gonna leave us with that and just say, Betsy, thank you so much for
well,
joining.
thank you for having me.
And I'll have links down in the comments so that people can check out Spongetta's garden. And
Thank you.
yeah, so yeah, I'm just delighted.
And I'm honored to be your first guest. So
Oh, well, I couldn't have asked for a better one. I really couldn't have.
thank you. Thank
You have
you.
you have set the bar awfully high.
I hope so. Excellent.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
How do you multiply by fractions, Mom?
Farmworks calling, our show is all done. Goodbye, farewell, so long, adieu. See you next week, same time, same place for food, flowers, and fun. Go in peace.